In this video, I'm going to show you how to make some basic text signs in Blender and import them into Flight Sim. Here's an example of one that I made, Hamilton Aviation. This is a previously built hangar that was blank. I decided I wanted to learn how to make my own signs. So this is a simple version here. It's in 3D. You can make the thickness and size any size you want. That's one example. We fly over here. I'll show you another example of different signs that you can make. Here's a kind of a 2D flat sign, more like a banner or a billboard. It says Embraer. Around the corner here, is a small sign. If I can get over to it. Says Embraer shipping and receiving. That's an example of a sign you can make. Fly over here. Just a couple of more examples. This emblem here, Low Aviation, Executive Terminal, and this fuel sign, Titan fuel sign. All those were made in Blender. I believe I may even have a billboard over by the road here, I think. No, not at this airport, a different airport. But you get the picture. So I'm going to show you how to make it in Blender. Okay, the first thing you're going to need is a copy of Blender. So go to the Blender homepage, www.blender.org. and you're going to see a download for Blender 3.5. As far as I know, the exporter add-on is not compatible with 3.5. So what you want to do is come up here to where it says download, click on that. Come up here to where it says previous versions up at the top. Come over here where it says every release is available for download. Click on that. And you want to scroll down, and my recommendation would be to use either 3.1 through 3.3. I'm using 3.1, but the latest version of the exporter is supposed to be compatible with 3.3, and I'll show you how to download the exporter. What you want to do is come over here and Google Blender to MSFS exporter, and normally the first item that pops up if you search it like that will be the correct one. The correct one is going to say Osobo Studio. There's an older, out-of-date, obsolete version that I believe, if you scroll down, I believe it's this Blender to MSFS toolkit. I believe that's the one that's obsolete now. You want the latest version recommended by Asobo, and that's this one. So click on this link here. It's going to take you to this page. Once you get to this page, you want to come up and verify it says Asobo Studio. Okay, and if you look down here, it gives you some installation instructions, but I'm going to show you how I install it. First thing you want to go to is come over on the right hand side where it says latest. Even though this is the latest version here, if there was another version and you came to this page, you may not get the latest version by looking here. So go ahead and click latest. Okay, and it's going to take you to the latest version, which is 1.3. Scroll down. In the notes here it says it's been updated for use with Blender 3.3. So you can come down here and you'll want to click on this zip file. So click on that zip file and download it. Okay, once you've downloaded it, you'll want to open Blender, and by the way, you can have as many versions of Blender loaded on your computer as you want. If you use 3.3 for example and you find out it's glitching somehow, you want to drop back down to 3.1 or something, you can have both of them loaded on there, no problem. Once you've installed Blender, load Blender up, and in order to add the Microsoft Exporter app, what you're going to do is come over here to where it says Edit, drop down to where it says Preferences, click on that. I'm going to go over here and click on where it says Add-ons. Come up here and click where it says Install. Okay, now you're going to find the file that you downloaded from GitHub, which is going to be this IO scene zip file. So click on the zip file, install add-on. Okay. Now once you get to this point, there's two places you need to enable it at. First one is the one that came up here. If you can't find it, just go up here and type in GL, and it's going to bring up both files that you need to enable. The first one is this one. Click on that. Also, you want to click on the one where it says Import Export 2.0 Format. You want to click on that also. Okay, once you've clicked on that, you can exit out of that. And you're going to come over here, and if you don't see this side menu here, you can hit the letter N, and that will toggle that menu on and off. So if you come over here and you don't see anything, but you see that little caret right there, you can either click on that and it'll bring it up, or the shortcut key is the letter N, which is the easiest way to do it. Okay, you'll know it's installed correctly when you see over here where it says Multi-Export 2.0. Now you've got it installed. Now you're ready to make something in Blender and export it into the flight simulator. You're going to see it's going to always default to a cube, a camera, and a light source. That's what this is, a camera, which I never use. This is a light source, which I don't use. So you can left click on your mouse, and while you're holding it, drag a box over everything, and right click, come down to delete, and you can just get rid of everything there. Okay, now if you've never used Blender before, I would recommend stopping now and viewing a good YouTube video on just how to use Blender basics. One channel is the one that I used. The name of the channel is Blender Guru, and he has an excellent beginner's tutorial, just so you get the hang of navigating and what the menus are before you dive into something else. And once you get the hang of it, if you really want to deep dive into making scenery for the sim, I would recommend a channel called My Physical World. He's an expert, and he really knows how to create complicated scenery items like buildings and everything. I'll leave some links in the description, and you can check them out if you want to. I'll go over some very basic things here at the beginning, so if you're already experienced, you can just fast forward. So to begin with, in order to look around here, you're going to want to hold the middle button of your mouse down, and while you're holding it, you can move the mouse and look around like this. Okay. If you want to move the object around on the screen, go over here where it's got a picture of a hand, and click on it. While you're holding it, you can move stuff around. If it gets out of view, you can bring it back into view or position it however you want by using the hand, and then you can rotate around using the middle mouse button. Okay, once you got the hang of that, first thing we're going to want to do to create a 3D text is come up here where it says Add. Click on that. Come down where it says Text. Click on that. Okay. You can zoom in and out by scrolling the wheel here. Okay, and you're going to get this. It's going to be right flat on the ground. And if you imported it into the sim like it is, that's how it's going to come into the sim. It's going to be right flat on the ground when you bring it in. So what I like to do is rotate it up. So the way you do that is you hit the letter R for rotate. Okay. Then you hit the letter X for the axis you want to rotate it on. And then using the keypad, type 90, hit enter, and it's rotated up. Okay, now in order to edit the text, right now we're in what's called object mode. You want to go to edit mode. You can click on this menu right here and come down and click on mode, and it'll take you to text or edit mode, so you can edit the text. One thing about Blender is you want to get the hang of using keyboard shortcuts, because it's a lot faster and easier than trying to look through the menu and find the right drop down menu to do whatever action you want to take. So that's one of the things you have to get the hang of. If you want to go from edit mode to object mode, you can use tab. If you hit tab, you can go back and forth from object to edit. Okay, now that we're in edit mode, you can edit the text just like you normally would in a text editor. I'll backspace here, and I'll create a sign that says Hamilton Aviation. So I'll just type that in. Okay, you can go up where the hand's at, and you can move it over. You can also move it in relation to the grid lines here by highlighting. Go back into object mode. It'll already be highlighted, but if it's not, you can either draw a box around it and highlight it, or you can use the shortcut command A, and that will highlight everything that's on the screen, which you may not want to do. Maybe you just want to highlight one object over here and leave this one alone. So you can draw a box around it and highlight it that way. If I wanted to move that over, come over here and click on Move. And you can grab these arrows just like you do on the sim and move it around however you want. That would be the x-axis. This would be the y-axis. And vertical would be the z-axis. If you have an object and you want it to be a certain distance above the ground in the sim, you can move it up however you want, and that's how it's going to show up. Okay, so now we've got, I'll go back to the cursor here by selecting this box here. Now that you've got the text that you want, now we can manipulate the text to suit our needs. For example, this is 2D text. Well, maybe I want it to have some 3D to it, or I want to change the size or the font. So what we do is we come over to the right side of the screen, scroll down until you see the A, that's called Object Data Properties. Click on it, and in here you can change different values to make it 3D or bigger or smaller, or change the font, whatever you want. Also, I forgot to add, let's bring this back down here. Before I start, I usually like to go to this one here called Scene Properties. I like to change the units to, the default is metric. I like to change the units to imperial. And now each one of these squares, instead of calibrated in metric, it's going to be, each one of these squares is 1 foot. So when you're making your sign, you want to at least have an idea how big you want your sign before you import it into the sim. Once it's in the sim, you still can make the object bigger and smaller using the scale feature, but you won't be able to stretch it in any one direction. So you may want to make the size of the sign the correct size, and Blender before you export it. So that's what I'm going to do here. Okay, let's go back over to object data properties, and if I want to give the sign a 3D texture, click on geometry, come down here where it says extrude, and I'm going to click on that and type in 0.1. Okay, that'll give it a little bit of depth, and you can change that to any size you want. You can also come over, click and hold the left button, and then you can change the size manually like that by moving your mouse back and forth. Or you can click and then type in the number that you want. Okay. You can also come down and change the font if you don't like the font. Let's say you want to change this from regular to something else. Come over to where the file container box is, click on that, and now you can see all the default fonts that's provided with Windows, and you can scroll through there and pick a different font if you want. If you make a mistake or you want to undo something, you can come up here to where it says edit, click on that, click on undo, and you can go back for a really long ways. You can just keep clicking undo, and it'll keep going back to previous things that you've done. Okay, so I'm going to extrude it again here, 0.1. Okay, go back here, click that box, take that move symbol off. Okay, let's say I'm done with how I want it to look. Okay, after I've gone through and looked at other things that you might want to play with. I don't know what most of these things do. I know the can use this to change the size. Okay. You can use this shear one. That kind of skews it back and forth like that. I'm going to undo that. Most of this other stuff I've never used and really don't know what it does. Okay, now that you've done that, you want to give it some color. So the way to do that is come down here where it says material properties, click on that. Come up here where it says new. Okay, one thing, let me go back, one thing I forgot to mention. Up here where it says collection and the text, you want to change this to whatever name that you want it to be when it's in the sim. So if I left it to collection, whenever I tried to find this object, once I've imported into the sim, the name of it's going to be collection. So you don't want that. You want to change it to something that's going to denote what your object is. In this case, I'm just going to call it Hamilton Aviation, so I'll double click on that. Okay. Alright, let's go back down here. If you want to add some color, normally you would do that up here, but since you're importing it into the sim, I would go down here and use these settings here meant for the sim. Okay, you come down and you'll see MSFS material params. So click on that. You'll see this menu here says disabled. You want to click on that and change it from disabled to standard. Okay. So once you've clicked on that, you can change the color here. So you click on where it says base color, and you're going to get a color wheel. You can also change it by using RGB parameters, HSV, or hex. One handy thing, if you have a specific color that you want to use, instead of hunting it on the color wheel here, you can Google a color and then say, I want to use the color green in hex. Well, you could Google you could Google that, and it'll tell you, what to put in there, and you can go straight to that color that you want. And you can also do the same thing using these parameters or RGB parameters, or you can just come up here and use the wheel. But you notice it's not changing color. Well, that's because right now we're in sort of a solid mode editor here. You want to change that from display in solid mode to display in material preview mode. Okay. So now when you click on this, you'll be able to see the colors. The same thing if you added a texture to this. Let's say you decided you want this to be made out of wood, and you wanted a wood texture. You would need to come over and click on that in order to see the texture. So let's say we're going to make this a blue here. Okay. Okay, the next thing you can look at is emissive color. And what that does is give whatever object that you're working on the ability to emit light. So if you click on this and then bring the scale up here, you'll notice that it doesn't look like it, but it's emitting light. That's why it's turning white here. But you don't need much in the sim in order to see the effect. So just turn it up, say about that much, and then when you get into the sim with this object, it's going to emit light. Okay, and any time of the day, the more you turn it up, the brighter it'll be. So if you don't want it to be lit all day long, come down here and click day-night cycle, and then it'll be off during the day, and then it'll be lit up at night, depending on how bright you set your emissive color at. So basically, we're done. So what we have to do now is export it and put it into the sim. So the way we're going to do that is you come up here. Did I mention this menu here? This is a little side menu here, and you're going to see there's your exporter, multi-export 2.0, and I believe I mentioned it before. You can toggle the N key to toggle that menu in and out. Okay, so now we're going to export it, but we need somewhere to export it to. We need a file package to export it to. So that's what we're going to do next, is we have to save what we're doing here, or you can just minimize it, and we're going to bring the sim up and create a package to put this in. Now that we're in the sim, we're going to create a library package that we're going to put our object into. And then that will eventually go into the community folder, and the object that you create and put in there can be used anywhere on the map, not at just any one location or just at any airport. You can use it anywhere and as many times as you like. So the first thing I did was I came over here and I created a new folder, and I called it Tutorial Scenery Library. Okay, so now we're going to create a library package for that. Come up here, click on File, New Project. You can see it's already typed it up here earlier. But if you if you had a specific spot you wanted it to go to, you can tell it what your path is going to be. Come over here, and I'm going to call this Tutorial Scenery Library. Can't type. I've created other packages in the past, so it all automatically defaults to what I used in the past. I'm not even sure if you need anything in these spots here or not. You can put whatever you want there. Create new project. I want to create a package. Click Next. Come over here, click Custom. Okay, you want to give this a title. I'm just going to name everything the same. Right here where it says miscellaneous, you want to click on that. Come down here and click on scenery. Hit next. Come up here, I'm going to name it, of course, tutorial. I think I'll call that tutorial model lib. Come down here, change this from BGL to model lib. Okay, and hit create. And you've just created a package. Let's bring our folder up and see. Okay, you've got a package here now. So now we're going to come here where it says package sources. Click on that. Click on scenery. Click on that. Here's what we just named that last thing, tutorial model lib. Also, if you're eventually going to make other objects like buildings and so forth, where you're going to use textures, you're going to have to make another folder here for your textures to reside in. So click on new folder, click textures. Okay, so now I'm going to back up. And I'm going to leave it right there. Move that out of the way. So now we're going to exit out of the sim and then back into Blender. Back in Blender, we're ready to export our sign. So we're going to come up here. If you don't have it up already, click on the letter N to bring up this side menu. Click on Multi-Export 2.0. Going to come up with this right here. Going to go to Settings. You're going to, doesn't matter what those, I don't usually click any of those. You want to, they say from other videos that I've watched that you want to check mark this transform right here. Come down to geometry. You want to make sure UVs, normals, vertex colors are all highlighted. We didn't use any modifiers, but you may use modifiers when you're making hangers and such. So you can get in the habit of always clicking on that so you don't forget. In this case, it doesn't matter. Okay, now over in File Explorer, where you created your tutorial scenery library or whatever you named it, what I like to do is come up to right here, and if you'll notice, you've got a file folder box here next to textures. You can configure, if you were using textures as part of your object, you can create a path straight to your textures folder if you wanted to. This is not going to have any texture, so I'm not going to do that. Okay. All right, go from settings over to objects. You want to highlight your sign, although in this case it really doesn't make any difference because you've only got one thing here, this text sign. But if you were building a hanger, you'd have multiple items here, and you want to highlight them all and select them, otherwise they won't get exported when you hit the export button. Anything that's not highlighted over here will be omitted, as far as I understand. So you can get into the habit of selecting everything. You can do a select all by hitting the letter A, and it'll select everything here on the screen, which is also corresponds with your files over here. So highlight, click on grouped by collections. Let's see if we can bring this menu out a little bit so we can see it better. You want to click on generate XML. This is the name of whatever you changed it to up here. I usually click on overwrite GUID. The GUID is a special identifying number that it gives to the XML file that's generated, so the sim can keep track of what all the objects are. In some cases you don't need to overwrite, in some cases you do. I just usually go ahead and click it just in case. It doesn't hurt anything if it's clicked. There may be special cases where it does. You also want to click on the folder here. Now you want to come over here and send it to the correct path, that to the folder that you made earlier. Click on that. I'm going to change this to list mode. I'm going to come over. You find your folder wherever that you created it. I created mine in one called Steam Games. Come down here, Tutorial Scenery Library. Click on that, accept. And there's the pathway here. So now you're ready to hit the export button. I'll bring up the folder up right here. Now you can send your files that's going to be created. You can send it directly to where it's supposed to wind up at, which would be package sources, model lib. That's where the files that you're fixing to generate should be. I usually don't do that because once you start creating a lot of objects, you're going to have a lot of files in here, and it may not be obvious at first if you were successful in creating the files. I like to see the files before they go in there to make sure that they generated correctly. It could be a little cluttered trying to find them once you get all this filled up. So you can do that however you want. So I'm going to go back. I like to generate them right here so I can see everything that's going to come up. So time to hit export. Okay, and it generated 3 files. You should see, if you don't see 3 files, something's not working right. So you're going to have one file that says .bin, one gltf, and one .xml file. If you don't see those 3 files, something is messed up. So I'm going to move those files now to where I want them. I'm going to copy and paste. Oops. Package sources, scenery, tutorial scenery library. Put them in the model lib. I'm going to paste them. And there you have it. That's where they're supposed to be. So now we have to go back into the sim and recreate the package so it actually compile them, and it'll show up under packages here after they've been compiled. Let me move that out of the way and minimize this, and we're going to bring up the sim. Back in the sim here, we come back up to File, click on Open Project, come to the file that you made, come down to the XML file, click on it, Okay, now we need to compile the package so that it will incorporate the object into the library file. So click on that, go over to Inspector, hit Build Package, okay, we've got 0 errors. If you look down, you should be able to see it, the Hamilton Aviation sign has been compiled right here. Okay, it's finished. Got no errors. Can close that out. It's time to go back out of the sim. The last step is to take that package and put it into the community folder, wherever you keep that at. So I'm going to go to my library, click on, this time you want to click on packages, and there's the package that we just compiled. Want to copy that. I'm going to go over to where I keep my community folder, and we're going to paste that in. And there we have it right here. That's our library file. We can start the sim back up. We're ready to bring our object in. Hopefully we did everything correctly. So we're going to, I'm going to open up my custom airport here. Hopefully you've already made an airport where you want this sign to go. So I'm going to open up a project. Going to, I've got one called Making Future KMCN. I'm going to use that one. Click on that. Click on the XML file. Once that comes up, I'm going to click on that, bring up the scenery BGL, click on that, load in editor. Give it a minute to load up. There's a lot of scenery here. Normally I have these windows over on my extra monitors so I don't clutter the screen up, but it won't record with them off this monitor, so get some of this stuff out of the way here. Let's see if we can find the sign. So with the objects window open up over here, and we're come down and select scenery. I click on all, come up to the search box here, and I'm going to type in Hamilton Aviation, And I've got several. I hope I get the right one here. Let's see. That one's under tutorial scenery. This is the correct one here. Click on that. I'm going to do a one-click placing. And we can see it down there on the ground. I'll unclick this. See if we can zoom down there. I see it's partially down into the ground because of how I had it in Blender. No problem though. Just highlight it. Bring up the properties box wherever it went. Alright, properties box, where are you? There we go. Unsnap the snap to ground. And we can bring it over and place it on this front of this hanger here. Put it until it just begins to disappear. You can see that right side has disappeared first, so it needs a little tweaking on the rotation. Come up here at a better angle. You want to get as close to the building as you can. Just barely moving the mouse and it wants to move. Come up where it says rotate. See if we can straighten it up just a hair. And then push it into the building as far as it'll go. You're always going to have a slight gap there. But if you get as close as possible, you just won't notice it. Back up here. Alright, let's see if it'll glow at night. Let's check that out, see if I did that correctly. Alright, where's my box at? Okay, what's going on here? For some reason I'm not getting a box here. Amazing. Let me come back and see what's going on here. Okay, I'm back. I'm out of the SDK part. It's not working like it normally does. It's working now. So there's the sign, and let's change the time, darken it up, and there we go. You can see it's lit. So that part's working correctly. So that's it. That's the end of this tutorial on how to make a 3D sign and hang it on a building or a hanger. I hope you got something out of this, and thanks for watching.